when silence replaces encouragement. There is a kind of discipline that feels cold to people who watch it. It doesn't speak. It doesn't encourage itself. It moves without ceremony, and that quiet unsettles those who still rely on inner noise to function. Most people believe discipline is built through self-talk. Pep talks in the mirror. Mental negotiations before action. A voice that says now, or later, or maybe tomorrow. That belief is why their habits decay. The voice never stops asking questions, and questions invite delay. You see it in ordinary scenes. A man laces his shoes, fingers stiff in the morning air, then pauses. He stares at the floor, jaw tight, breath shallow. The room is silent except for traffic outside. He waits for the feeling to arrive. It doesn't. His body cools, and the shoes stay on the floor. Someone later calls him burned out, and he nods, though he knows the truth is quieter than that. They start strong. They speak loudly to themselves. Then the words thin. Then the ritual collapses. Not because they are weak, but because they built discipline on conversation instead of identity. Ancient warriors and Zen monks understood a different structure. Miyamoto Musashi did not argue himself into action. A monk does not persuade his legs to stand before dawn. The body rises because that is what it does. Silence replaces permission. Watch someone who has crossed that line. Hands reach for tools the same way every day. Cold air fills the lungs. Shoulders settle. Others notice the absence of drama. They joke about rigidity. They feel judged without being spoken to. Before you continue, write the habit you keep explaining to yourself instead of performing. One sentence. No justification, he was capable, and that was the problem. Let me tell you about someone like you. He was capable. Sharp. He read the right books, trained when inspiration struck, spoke fluently about discipline when the conversation turned serious. People nodded when he talked. They assumed consistency would eventually catch up to him. It didn't. Most mornings looked the same. Alarm. Eyes open to dim light. Dry mouth. A brief stillness where the ceiling fan clicked overhead. His hand reached for the phone without thought, thumb stiff, joints cold. Messages, headlines, noise. The body warmed while the day slipped forward. Somewhere in that routine, intention dissolved, and no one else noticed. At work, he was respected. He met deadlines when pressure arrived. Under supervision, his output was clean. Alone, structure collapsed. Coworkers joked that he was better under pressure. They didn't see that pressure was the only thing deciding for him. When he trained, it began with dialogue. Inner commands. Encouragement. Just 10 minutes. You'll feel better after. Shoes by the door. Laces half pulled. Legs heavy from yesterday. He stood there negotiating, breath shallow, calves tight, waiting for alignment. The longer he waited, the louder the voice became, until the voice itself was the activity. Some days he forced it. Those days felt heroic. Sweat burned his eyes. Pulse hammered. He posted proof. Others reacted with approval. The next day, the body remembered the strain but not the rule. Without applause, friction returned. Weeks passed like this. Starts without continuation. Effort without permanence. He blamed complexity. Schedule. Stress. He blamed himself, too, but gently, the way people do when they plan to try again later. The real issue was simpler and harder to accept. Every action still required permission. Nothing in his day moved unless his mind approved it. That approval fluctuated with sleep, mood, praise, and comfort. His identity remained flexible, and flexibility bred collapse. Watch someone else in the same room. Same hour. Same cold floor. Knees lower without comment. The mat presses into skin. Breath steadies before thought appears. There is no announcement. No inner rally. just movement repeating what it has already decided. Others feel the difference. They sense it without language. Invitations stop, including mornings. Jokes turn sharper. "You're intense," someone says, half smiling. He shrugs, still tying the belt the same way, fingers numb, routine intact. Capability never built this. Removal of choice did. And once choice disappears, what happens to the person who still relies on persuasion? Where routine exists before thought appears. In old temples, the day begins before anyone is awake enough to decide. Wood floors hold the night's cold. Feet touch them without hesitation. The body moves as if pulled by something older than preference. No one asks how they feel. No one asks why. A bell sounds once. Not loud. Not urgent. Just present. Robes are lifted. Knees bend. The mat receives weight. Breath fogs the air. Fingers feel stiff, then warm. The ritual begins already halfway complete, because it began long before this moment. There is no self-talk here. No internal speech arguing for meaning. The body learned the sequence years ago. When the bell sounds, this happens. When the light shifts, this happens. When hunger appears, it waits. Identity carries the load that motivation cannot. Contrast this with a modern room. Same hour. Artificial light. Someone sits on the edge of the bed, shoulders slumped, phone glowing against tired eyes. The body waits for instruction. The mind scrolls for permission. Minutes pass unnoticed. Outside, the world is already moving without him. Ancient warriors understood this weakness. Miyamoto Musashi did not rehearse courage in his head before practice. He sharpened his blade because morning arrived. His hands knew the weight. The smell of metal. The slight resistance as stone met steel. Others watched in silence, unsettled by the absence of drama. Identity enforced discipline without noise. The tea ceremony follows the same logic. Same gestures. Same order. No variation for mood. Hands lift the cup the same way. Heat presses into the palms. Steam rises. Observers feel a quiet pressure, as if their own inconsistency has been exposed without accusation. When discipline lives in identity, choice becomes irrelevant. When choice disappears, fatigue loses leverage. The body complains, but it is ignored the way background weather is ignored. Cold exists. Rain exists. Practice continues. People around this structure react predictably. Some admire it from a distance. Some mock it to protect themselves. Too rigid, they say. Live a little. Their laughter carries a thin edge. They feel something slipping out of reach. The monk does not respond. He bows. He sits. He rises. He leaves at the same hour every day. Social friction accumulates quietly, like dust, but it never alters the schedule. The man from before senses this gap. He watches others who move without discussion. He feels irritation first, then curiosity, then a deeper discomfort. His tools are sharper now. His plans are detailed. But his days still require consent. And consent is fragile. So the question sharpens without being asked aloud: what would collapse if the voice inside you went silent tomorrow morning? The quiet negotiation that ruins mornings. This is where most days fracture without sound. Not in collapse. Not in visible failure. In negotiation. Morning arrives. Light leaks through curtains. The body registers weight before thought forms. Neck stiff. Lower back dull. A faint pressure behind the eyes from sleep that didn't quite finish its work. The floor is cold. The room waits. And then the voice appears. Just today. Ease into it. You trained hard yesterday. 5 more minutes won't matter. The voice speaks softly, as if it's being reasonable. The body stays still while the words arrange themselves. Breath slows. Muscles cool. Time opens a gap. This happens fast. Faster than memory can track. One moment the shoes are beside the bed. The next, they're still there an hour later, untouched, while the day has already chosen a different shape. No one sees this battle. At work, he arrives on time. He jokes. He performs. He carries himself like someone in control. Inside, something erodes quietly. Each negotiation leaves residue. Each exception teaches the body that rules are flexible. The body learns faster than the mind. The next morning, resistance arrives earlier. The voice doesn't need to argue as long. The shoulders tighten sooner. The heaviness feels justified. A pattern forms that no intention can interrupt. Contrast this with a different scene. Rain hits the pavement outside. A door opens. Cold air cuts across the chest. The body steps out anyway. Shoes hit the ground with the same rhythm as yesterday. Breath shortens, then steadies. Muscles warm through repetition, not encouragement. There is no conversation happening here. The rule was decided long ago. Someone watching from a window shakes their head. Crazy, they mutter. They pull the blanket tighter. They feel a sting they don't name. Negotiation always feels humane. That's why it's dangerous. Each time the mind is allowed to vote, it demands better conditions next time. More sleep. Better weather. A clearer schedule. The list grows. Discipline thins. The warrior knew this. When exhaustion appeared, intensity dropped. Not consistency. When rain fell, training moved indoors. No thought. When the schedule broke, the next available slot was taken immediately. No analysis. Pre-decided responses replaced debate. The man who still negotiates senses the trap but can't step out cleanly. His plans are sharp. His intentions sincere. But every morning, the voice asks permission again. And the longer that voice speaks, the weaker the body's memory becomes. So the tension tightens. If tomorrow morning offered no dialogue at all, what would your body do before your mind could interfere? When choice is removed, resistance loses its teeth. There is a moment when discipline hardens, not through effort, but through subtraction. Choice disappears first. The alarm sounds. The body moves. Not quickly. Not aggressively. Just forward. Feet touch the floor. Cold climbs the calves. Knees bend. The belt is tied the same way it was yesterday. Fingers feel clumsy, then sure. No one asks if this is necessary. The rule already exists. This is where systems quietly replace strength. Fixed time. Fixed action. Same order. Same place. The body no longer waits for clarity. It obeys pattern. Even fatigue follows the rule, showing up but failing to interfere. Contrast this with someone who still decides each day. He wakes tense, already tired. The weight of choice presses on his chest before he stands. He scrolls, stalls, stretches time thin. By the time he chooses, the body has cooled into refusal. People mistake this difference for willpower. It isn't. Watch the one who removed choice on a bad morning. Rain taps against the window. The air smells metallic. Legs feel heavy from yesterday. Intensity drops without discussion. Movement remains. A shorter session. Slower pace. Continuity preserved. No drama enters the room. Someone else sees this later and scoffs. What's the point if you're not going all in? The question hangs awkwardly. He doesn't answer. He's already folding the mat, pulse steady, attention elsewhere. Choice invites opinion. Opinion invites interference. Ancient forms understood this deeply. The tea ceremony allows no improvisation. Hands lift when they are meant to lift. The cup turns when it must turn. Heat presses into skin. Steam fogs vision. Observers feel restless, exposed by the precision. There is nowhere to insert personality. The warrior lived this same way. When rain fell, training moved indoors. When injured, footwork slowed. When the schedule broke, the next available hour was taken without commentary. These responses were decided long before conditions appeared. The man who still negotiates finds this unsettling. He tries to adopt the structure, but keeps exceptions. He tells himself he's being reasonable, flexible, balanced. The structure never holds. Flexibility feels humane until it eats continuity alive. Removing choice feels harsh at first, socially abrasive. Friends push back. You're too strict. Relax. Invitations arrive later or stop entirely. The silence after refusal grows longer. Something else grows too. The body begins to move before thought. The mind arrives late, slightly embarrassed, with nothing left to debate. This is the shift no one celebrates. It doesn't look impressive. It just keeps happening. And once choice is gone, a question emerges that no longer feels theoretical. If nothing is left to decide, what excuse could possibly survive? The days that continue without looking impressive. This is where many people break the chain by trying to make it shine. They miss one session. Or they arrive exhausted. Or the body carries a low fever, skin warm, joints thick, breath shallow. The thought appears immediately, today doesn't count. Better to wait. Better to restart clean. The chain snaps quietly. Watch someone who doesn't break it. He wakes with a dull ache behind the eyes. Throat dry. Legs slow. The room smells stale. He sits anyway. Not long. Not perfectly. Knees touch the mat. The floor presses cold into bone. Breath counts return slowly, uneven at first. 5 minutes pass. He stands. The day continues. No one applauds this. At work later, he moves slower. Someone asks if he's okay. He nods. He doesn't explain. The chain remains intact, invisible but unbroken. Continuity doesn't look disciplined to outsiders. It looks lazy, half-hearted, insufficient. People respect intensity because it performs well. Continuity performs nothing. It just refuses to disappear. A warrior with an injured ankle practices footwork in place. Short steps. Limited range. The body complains with sharp signals. He adjusts without stopping. Others watch and frown. Why bother? Someone asks. He doesn't answer. Tomorrow arrives with the habit still alive. The man who still negotiates cannot tolerate this. If it isn't perfect, he'd rather not see it at all. His pride prefers clean narratives. Strong starts. Clean resets. He posts about getting back on track. Each reset costs him something he doesn't name. Continuity asks for humility. It asks you to move when the movement looks unimpressive. When sweat doesn't pour. When effort doesn't feel heroic. When the body shows its limits plainly. A monk with shaking hands still pours tea. A little spills. He wipes it without emotion. The ceremony continues. The observer feels awkward, as if witnessing something too honest. Perfection would have been easier to watch. This is how identity thickens. Not through peaks, but through refusal to create gaps. The body learns that showing up sick, tired, distracted, or dull is still showing up. The rule stays intact even when the energy does not. Social friction sharpens here. Friends encourage rest in ways that sound like permission to vanish. You deserve a break. Listen to your body. He listens. The body says, keep the chain. The difference becomes visible over time. Not in any single day, but in the absence of disappearance. While others restart again and again, he never fully stops. And the tension tightens further. If you remove the requirement to feel strong, what excuse would remain for breaking continuity tomorrow? The rules decided before trouble arrives. Most failures happen after something unexpected appears. Not because the obstacle is large, but because it demands a decision under pressure. The train runs late. Rain starts suddenly. A meeting overruns its slot. The body tightens. Breath shortens. The mind scrambles to assess damage. In that scramble, discipline dissolves. Watch the man who still relies on thinking. His routine breaks and he pauses. Should I move it? Skip it? Make it up tomorrow? Each option opens another branch. Time slips while he weighs them. The window closes. He tells himself it was unavoidable. It wasn't. The difference lies upstream. Long before disruption arrives, another person has already answered it. When rain falls, training moves indoors. When time is cut, the session shortens. When energy drops, pace slows. When the schedule collapses, the next available hour is taken immediately. These responses are old. They don't feel clever. They feel dull. That dullness is strength. A sudden storm hits the street. Wind cuts through clothing. Water soaks shoes. Someone turns back, irritated, muttering about bad luck. Another steps under an awning, adjusts the route, keeps moving. Breath quickens. Cold bites the skin. The body adapts without commentary. Later, someone hears about it and laughs. You're insane. The laughter carries relief. It isn't theirs to do. Pre-decided responses remove drama. They turn chaos into a minor adjustment. The body doesn't spike with stress because it doesn't need to choose. It executes. The man who still negotiates feels this gap painfully. He plans meticulously, yet collapses when plans are challenged. He thought discipline was about preparation. He didn't see that it was about inevitability. In a dojo, this principle is visible. The sword is wrapped the same way every time. Hands find the grip without searching. Knees fold onto the mat without ceremony. When the teacher changes the drill, no one freezes. They adjust and continue. There is no pause to complain. Observers feel something tighten in their chest. They sense how exposed their own dependence on conditions has been. Socially, this creates distance. People expect excuses. When none arrive, they feel judged by contrast. Invitations become conditional. If you're free. He often isn't, and when he is, he arrives on time, leaves on time, unchanged. The body now trusts the structure more than the mind. Stress loses its leverage. Surprises lose their power. Even failure becomes small and contained, unable to spread. The tension sharpens again. If every obstacle already had an answer waiting, what would be left for your mind to sabotage when conditions turn against you, when the body moves before permission is asked? At some point, something shifts without announcement. The alarm sounds and the body is already upright before the mind registers the noise. Feet touch the floor. Cold travels upward. The shoulders roll once. Breath pulls in deep, automatic. The day has started without a vote. This is not excitement. There is no surge. No sense of victory. Just momentum continuing itself. The mind arrives late, searching for a conversation that isn't happening anymore. It looks for reasons. It finds none. The body is already tying the belt, already stepping outside, already moving through air that stings the face. Pulse settles into a familiar rhythm. Muscles warm the way they always do. Others notice before you do. Friends hesitate when inviting you out. You probably won't come, they say, half joking. Coworkers stop offering shortcuts. They know you'll take the long route if that's the rule. Someone calls you rigid, not unkindly, but with distance. You nod. You keep moving. The transformation isn't dramatic. It's social. You no longer explain yourself. You don't defend your routines. You don't negotiate exceptions. Your calendar looks boring. predictable. That predictability unsettles people who live by mood. The body has learned something irreversible: action does not require dialogue. In the dojo, this is visible. A student bows before thinking. Hands wrap the sword handle the same way. Knees lower to the mat without ceremony. When corrected, the adjustment happens instantly. No internal protest. No wounded pride. The movement corrects itself. The man from the beginning feels this change creep in quietly. One morning he notices he didn't hesitate. Another day passes where he didn't feel proud or guilty. He simply did what was next. The voice that once dominated the morning has grown faint, like a radio in another room. This is when discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like gravity. People misunderstand this stage. They think the struggle is gone. It isn't. Fatigue still appears. Discomfort still signals. Desire still flickers. None of it carries authority anymore. The body leads. The mind follows. And once that order flips, returning to the old way feels wrong. Sitting still feels heavier than moving. Skipping feels stranger than showing up. Identity has shifted beneath awareness. Which leaves one final tension unresolved. If your body already knows what happens next, what part of you is still waiting for permission to disappear? When discipline no longer needs a voice. Discipline is not something you perform each morning. It is something you become, quietly, when the argument ends. The strongest person is not the one who forces himself forward with clenched teeth and loud thoughts. It is the one who removed the discussion entirely. When the body stands without being convinced. When the hands move before meaning is assigned. When the day unfolds without asking who you are today. This is why self-talk eventually fails. It keeps discipline dependent on mood, energy, confidence, and comfort. It keeps the mind in charge of something it is too unstable to govern. The warrior did not conquer himself with words. He arranged his life so words were unnecessary. Fixed time. Fixed action. Pre-decided responses. Continuity without pride. Over time, the body learned the truth the mind resisted: there is nothing to decide. When discipline reaches this stage, it stops looking impressive. It looks boring. Predictable. Socially inconvenient. People stop understanding you, then stop asking. Invitations thin. Explanations feel pointless. Silence expands. That silence is not emptiness. It is order. From here on, effort feels optional because structure carries weight. Motivation comes and goes without consequence. Fatigue visits without authority. The voice inside still speaks sometimes, but it speaks from behind glass, unable to interrupt what is already happening. This is the point of no return. Not because you are stronger than before, but because returning to negotiation feels wrong in the body. Skipping feels heavier than showing up. Chaos feels loud. Routine feels neutral. If this exposed something you've been avoiding, make it public. Comment your commitment. One sentence. No explanation,